Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. I consider this podcast an ongoing daily advanced course in manifestation and the creation of your own personal reality. I've tried to provide a lot of different perspectives, and I want to return to an advanced teaching on manifestation as discussed by David Spangler in his book Everyday Miracles, The Inner Art of Manifestation, as well as some of his other books. Spangler taught manifestation and was a founder of the Findhorn organization, which focuses on New Age and spiritual teachings. When I say manifestation, what is manifestation when I say that to you? My Random House Dictionary defines manifestation as the act of making something readily perceived by the eye or the understanding, evident, obvious, apparent, plain. Manifestation is the act of making something invisible visible. It is the act of turning something abstract into something concrete, something potential into something real. It's that simple, and it's something we do both in conscious and unconscious ways every day. We make our thoughts plain and evident through our actions and our speech. And in so doing, we are manifesting our ideas, our feelings, even our whole personalities. We do our work, and as a consequence, we manifest a product or a service. Normally, we do this kind of manifesting in very ordinary ways in the physical world. We use familiar resources such as money and labor or creativity to bring things we wish into our lives. But sometimes, something we need or want just appears, as if by coincidence, without any seeming effort or unusual activity on our part. Or perhaps we learn to use resources of the mind and spirit that go beyond the ordinary world. Such resources get results, but not in the ways of buying or building. And that is what I want to learn more about and teach you. Not going out and seeking a loan or getting a grant, not outwardly trying to do with anything, but inwardly actively creating and honing and nourishing an image that you wish to accomplish. And then you make that image a part of your life and you give it energy of your conviction and love. And eventually it appears in your world. So let's define manifestation as the art of fashioning a co-creative, synchronistic, and mutually supportive relationship between the inner creative energy of a person's own mind and spirit and their counterpart within the larger world in order to bring a new and desirable situation into being. Manifestation goes by many names. Sometimes it's called visualization, affirmation, or positive thinking, although I believe that these are only a part of a larger process at work. Sometimes it's defined as a form of prayer or creative imagination. Whatever it's called, it is usually seen as a metaphysical, mystical, or magical process that can bring us what we need or want when normal methods either have failed to do so or do not seem possible or applicable to a situation. Manifestation seems to work in unpredictable, unanticipated, and maybe even miraculous ways. It can range from finding just the right parking place on a busy downtown street to being given a gift of money sufficient to pay your bills when you otherwise have no income. It can mean coincidentally finding just the right job or meeting just the right person with whom to fall in love. The flavor of a manifestation is that it seems coincidental, an event that seems synchronistically beyond the apparent power of our own efforts or resources, yet that brings us just what we need or want. It has the flavor of luck or magic about it. It appears miraculous. And when it happens to you, it's so exciting, so wonderful. And when it continually starts to happen, then your whole life is changed. Now, recently I explored David Spangler in our episode, The Levels of Manifestation. And I found his teachings on manifestation to be very interesting and powerful. And he also teaches on the cosmology of manifestation. In his book, Everyday Miracles, The Inner Art of Manifestation, he tells a story he heard from one of his participants in a class. One year, his student Bill sailed solo from Panama to Hawaii. En route, he decided that he wanted to build another boat, a catamaran with traditional Chinese junk sails, which would be easier for him to handle. Such a configuration was very rare, and he wasn't just sure how to build it or how it would sail. And while in Maui, he befriended a couple with 2 small children who themselves had a catamaran. One day they sailed their boats to a cove on the island of Lanai, and there his friend showed him blueprints for a boat design he'd been working on, which turned out to be a catamaran with Chinese junk sails. Discovering that his newfound friend had a similar vision as he did and was offering him help in building the boat of his dreams was an exciting event for Bill. But he knew that the project would take thousands of hours labor. Before starting on it, he wished he could actually sail a junk-rigged boat to be sure it was what he really wanted. The next morning, he arose early and was fixing himself a cup of tea when a small Chinese junk-rigged boat sailed in to join him and his friend in the bay. The owner of the boat, a California carpenter who had built it himself, then took him out for the day to try the boat out and see if it was what he really wanted to build. At the end of the day, he returned convinced that a junk-rigged catamaran was the boat he wanted, and he was now ready to build it. Bill concluded his story saying the Californian's boat was the only junk-rigged boat I saw in 2.5 years of being on the water, and it showed up the morning after we were looking for a solution to get some junk experience. At that point, the miraculous part of the manifestation receded into the background, and 3,000 or 4,000 hours of intense work took over to make the dream reality. Bill's story is about a meaningful coincidence, also called a synchronicity, which could be another term for manifestation. You probably experience such coincidences in your life. What kind of universe enables such things to occur? Until recently, our culture accepted a view of the cosmos in which such coincidences should not or could not happen. There was no place in the clockwork mechanistic universe portrayed by 19th century science for anything like manifestation, miracles, or magic. Fortunately, modern science, with its explorations into quantum reality, ecology, chaos, and complexity, is giving us a very different image of the world than that which had been accepted in the industrialized West, even up through the middle of this century. In order to explore the principles that underlie manifestation, I quite often refer to this new scientific cosmology and draw metaphors from it. There are 2 reasons for this. I've always had a love for science, born, no doubt, from having a scientist for a father, and an inventor and an engineer for a grandfather. Before I embarked on the path of freelance mystic, I was working for a degree in molecular chemistry. I chose not to become a practicing scientist, but my love for science continues to this day. Also, science itself is opening new perceptions of the connections between the physical and the mystical. Over the past 2 decades, numerous books have been written on the parallels between the worldviews of the mystic and the quantum physicist, and what might be called the physics of consciousness. Today, when I use metaphors and images from the physical and biological sciences to express my inner spiritual vision, I feel I'm in good company. This does not mean, however, that I'm attempting to describe the working of manifestation in quantum mechanical terms, though physicist F. David Piot has attempted in his book Synchronicity to do just that. The ways in which manifestation works may not be open to a purely scientific explanation or description at all. Nevertheless, since manifestation is part of the universe in which we live, the reasons why it works must relate to how the universe is structured and to the laws that govern it. By looking at what science currently knows about this, we may gain some insights into the principles behind this phenomenon. The working of manifestation has its foundation in the idea of fields of force or energy. A book in my library called All That Is Solid Melts into Air deals with the challenge of that spirit of modernity to traditional philosophical outlooks. It particularly captures one aspect of the challenge to our customary worldview. This is the challenge presented by modern physics, whose discoveries show that all that was once considered immutable and solid, even matter itself, is now seen to be the pattern of relationship and fields of probability and force. In Microcosm, the economist George Gilder writes, "The central event of the 20th century is the overthrow of matter. The powers of the mind are everywhere, ascendant over the brute force of things. He gives a succinct overview of the development and implications of quantum mechanical physics, referring to the quantum realm as a realm of information and to the quantum atom as an atom of information. He proceeds to say, in the atom of information, this era acquires its definitive symbol. What was once a blank solid is now revealed in part as information. What was once an inert particle now shines with patterns and probabilities. And later he writes, the move from macrocosm to microcosm can be seen as a progress from a material world composed of blank and inert particles to a radiant domain rich with sparks of informative energy. Patterns, probabilities, sparks, and atoms of information, fields of force. These terms describe a strangely different universe from the one our culture assumed to be true 100 years ago. All that was solid has melted into air, and we now see a universe vastly more energetic, dynamic, and mind-like than we had previously suspected. It is a universe in which a materialist paradigm and patterns of thought based on materialist logic can only scratch the surface of reality. Indeed, they often obstruct us from viewing and participating in that reality at a deeper level. This image of the universe arising from the dynamic interplay of fields of force, a universe rich in possibility and information, is itself not new. Though through quantum mechanical physics, chaos theory, micro and molecular biology, ecology, and the information sciences and computer technologies, we are looking at it in new ways, with images and techniques not available to our ancestors. If we substitute the word presence or soul for the word field, and life for energy or force, we actually are very close to the worldview of the ancient mystery and mystical teachings. In this view, everything is alive, and we live in a universe in which we interact on all levels, not with inert things, but with living presences. Many spiritual teachings tell of a primal oneness or spirit from which all things emerge. This ancient teaching is paralleled as well by new images from contemporary physics. For example, physicist David Bohm in his book Wholeness and the Implicate Order discusses the existence of a primal state, the implicate order in which everything is enfolded. The order is a wholeness from which the universe unfolds or explicates itself. In turn, each element and object of the universe contains this wholeness. This enfolded order, the totality of the cosmos, is enfolded within each of us. In the enfolded order, there is neither time nor space as we know them. At that deep level of wholeness, everything is a part of everything else. Although this description of the universe comes from an interpretation of quantum mechanics, it is the same description that we gain from the literature of mystical experiences. In modern physics and cosmology, the universe is made up of energy and fields from which matter is derived. Energy can take any form, while fields are patterns that organize energy into forms. Both energy and fields are hypothesized as arising from a unitary state, perhaps Bohm's implicate or enfolded order. Here we encounter a primal, creative trinity, familiar to us already from various religious traditions. The interplay of energy and fields creates systems, patterns of interconnectedness, interaction, and behavior. Everything we know of might be seen as a system of one kind or another, including ourselves. A system is a way of describing an object or condition holistically. Some systems process information and energy in ways that enable that system to transcend its present state and grow into new behavior. Given the appropriate energy, the system can repattern and transform itself. Such systems are called self-organizing. All living creatures are self-organizing systems, but so is the Earth itself and the cosmos beyond. The study of systems, particularly self-organizing ones, has led to the development of new sciences such as the science of dynamics, the science of complex systems, and chaos mathematics. These interrelated sciences also give us a picture of a dynamic, interactive, interconnected universe. One concept that has come from these fields is that of the attractor, especially the strange attractor. An attractor is not a point in space or a thing like a magnet, rather it is a non-physical organizing principle, if you will. Describe the end towards which a dynamic system evolves. If that end is a final state, the attractor is called a point attractor. If the end is a repetitive cyclical state, then that is a cyclical attractor. If the end, however, is a non-repetitive pattern, a non-linear, complex, chaotic pattern, then the attractor is a strange attractor. The idea of the attractor suggests that within chaos is a complex form of order, one that we have not been able to recognize before because we have not had the tools to see it or describe it. Nonlinear or chaotic systems are profoundly influenced by the conditions that initiate them. The smallest change can have a very large effect. This has become known as the butterfly effect. The name comes from a metaphorical example used to illustrate this phenomenon, that something is seemingly tiny and inconsequential as the flutter of a butterfly's wings can set up a chain of cascading consequences, such as a growing interaction of atmospheric disturbances that eventually could result in a tornado or hurricane many thousands of miles away. Research leads scientists to believe that most systems in the universe, certainly those upon which the cosmos depends, are nonlinear, chaotic systems defined by strange attractors. Such systems are indeterminate, that is, their future behavior cannot be predicted with any great accuracy. Thus, unpredictability, chaos, wildness lie at the heart of the universe. We do not live in a predetermined, clockwork, mechanistic cosmos. The door is always open for revelation, emergence, newness, and transformation. On the other hand, very recent research suggests that while chaotic systems are chaotic and essentially unpredictable, they can be affected and to some extent directed. Small systematic changes made in the chaotic system can cause the chaotic element to be reduced or ordered in a new way, giving the system a small shove in a desired direction. What does all this mean for manifestation? We do not have to be chaos mathematicians or quantum mechanical physicists to use this inner art, but it is important that we begin to revise the universe within which manifestation takes place. This scientific worldview of the last century, which unfortunately is the one which most people are familiar and which tends to dominate our cultural imagination, posits a world filled with objects and beings separated by time and space. It is a world made up of isolated particles interacting according to mechanistic laws of motion, cause and effect, and so forth. However modern they seem, ideas of creative visualization, positive thinking, prosperity consciousness, the whole new thought movement and its varied offshoots are all based on the classical scientific worldview, the world of the separated particle. In such a worldview, the phenomenon of manifestation, assuming it is accepted at all, would be seen as something like magnetism, drawing a separate thing, person or condition to ourselves across time and space. The magnet of manifestation pulls to us whatever corresponds to the images and beliefs we hold in our minds. This raises a number of questions. What is the force or energy that crosses space and time to draw the object of our manifestation toward us? Is it a kind of psychic magnetism? Whatever that may be. Furthermore, in this classic worldview, we begin the process separated from that which we wish to manifest. That separation expresses as an awareness of lack. We must somehow, through the strength of our work, creativity, faith, belief, affirmations, or positive thoughts, overcome the obstacles of distance and separation. We must reach out and draw what we want to us. In the worldview of modern physics, that separation may not really exist. We are connected in subtle and important ways with the universe. If we accept David Bohm's notion of an enfolded order, then we already have that which we wish to attract. The challenge is not to draw it to us across some distance of space and time, but to explicate and inhabit the pattern that we form with the object of our manifestation. Manifestation then is an issue of repatterning and of generating the appropriate and sufficient energy to organize and reorganize our lives into the new pattern we seek. In keeping with the spirit of the butterfly effect, if we introduce just the right image or right thought at the right time into our dynamic field of our own being, and hence into the larger field of the world in which our field is enfolded, we can bring about the manifestation we desire. In this dynamic system, the image of what we wish to manifest is the strange attractor, the repatterning, organizing principle that shapes the unpredictability of the future into a specific form. In such a worldview, we do not acquire that which we desire, we become it. The idea of fields provides a foundation for a cosmology of manifestation. Upon this foundation are 6 other related ideas. I call them the 6 pillars of manifestation. The first 3 waves, interrelationship and co-incarnates, deal with the structure of the cosmos. Like the concept of fields, they reflect the body of the universe. The second 3, mind, essence, and unity, relate to the spirit that inhabits or expresses itself through that structure. They reflect the soul of the universe. The body and soul are not separate, but are 2 aspects of one mystery, one single universal incarnation. The first pillar, waves. When the cry "surf's up" is heard on the beaches of Southern California and Hawaii, it's a signal to grab your board and head for the waves. When I seek to manifest, I'm heading for the waves too, only these are waves of possibility. In quantum physics, the basic material of the universe, the subatomic matter from which everything is formed, can exist in 2 states, as a particle or as a wave. This basic stuff is neither one of these 2 states exclusively, but something that encompasses both of them and can express as either. This something cannot be described. We are familiar in ordinary life with waves, like the ocean waves that make surfers so happy. We are also familiar with particles, separate individual things like apples, oranges, ping pong balls, and people. We are not so familiar with something that is both at the same time. Particles describe a particular location in time and space. A small Celtic cross sits on his desk. That's its location. It's not on my desk and on the table across the room at the same time. A wave, on the other hand, can fill the room. It's not localized. When I turn my radio on, it does not receive radio waves only when it is on my desk, but when it is on the table. The radio waves are not in any specific spot in my office the way the Celtic cross is. Wherever I carry the radio, even outside my office, it still receives the broadcast to which I have tuned it. In quantum physics, subatomic matter is called a wave packet. This term suggests that it is a mixture of both a wave and a particle in a manner we do not understand. However, this basic stuff is also called probability. The universe is made up of probability, and the wave state contains all the probable location that its particle state may occupy. People are not quantum phenomena, though we are made up of subatomic processes that are quantum phenomena. There is in fact some evidence that consciousness itself may be a quantum state, obeying the same laws as do other quantum phenomena like electrons and photons. However, if I were to describe myself in my particular state, I would say I am Brian Scott, currently sitting in my office in the western part of the United States. I am married and I have 2 cats, 2 kids. In my wave state, this Brian Scott is only one of a nearly infinite number of possible Brian Scotts. In my wave state, I have access to a multiplicity of options and possibilities. Some of them are very low on the probability scale. For example, it is highly unlikely that in the next few minutes I will suddenly become the President of the United States. However, there are things I could do that would raise that probability, though probably not by much, such as becoming active in electoral politics. And even though the probability is so low as to approach 0, it is not 0 in the wave state. However, improbably there is still an infinitesimal chance, in quantum mechanical terms, the wave that represents all the possibilities of my life could collapse into my being the President of the United States. On the other hand, it is far more likely that I will remain here at my desk for the next few hours or so, recording this episode, and I will then get up, not in answer to a summons, but in response to a call for dinner. Still, it is important to realize that we are not trapped in the particle of our history and our habits, and the dictates of a purely linear logic in our lives. Other possibilities are available to us as we reach into our wave state and step out of the locality and particularity of our situation. We can deliberately work with the waves of probability to transform our lives. That, in effect, is what the inner art of manifestation is about. Likewise, when I'm in a particle state, I am separate from that which I wish to manifest. I do not have it, which is obviously why I want it. However, in the non-local wave aspect of my being, the separation does not exist. My consciousness, which is wave-like and quantum-like in its ability to be anywhere or any when that it wishes through the power of imagination and visualization, spreads out to include that which I wish to manifest. As particles, we may be separated, but as waves, we are already together. To say this another way, one of the waves of probability that unfolds from this moment of my life is one that, if it became expressed in a particular way, would include my possessing, being in relationship with, or experiencing in some manner whatever it is I wish to manifest. Manifestation is the art of making that possibility more probable than it would have been otherwise. In effect, it is the art of transforming a wave of possibility into a particle of actuality. In the wave state, all things are possible, but in the particle state, only one or a few things are possible at any given moment. In my wave consciousness, I can both have and not have the new job I seek to manifest. As a particle, I either have the job or I do not. In the art of manifestation, learning how to accept and work with limits is as important as learning how to tune into abundance. Both the specificity and the limitations of the particle and the limitlessness of the wave must be understood and appreciated. The value of understanding the wave state is that it allows me to access the realm of possibility and to expand my horizons of what is possible. Without this experience, I may not be able to envision myself in the kind of particulate reality I would like to have. If I cannot see that new job, for example, as a real possibility, as a reality that I have within myself, and as a potential that I have the capacity to fulfill, then my chances of actually being in that job as a specific particular reality in my life are lessened. By the same token, if I cannot accept or integrate into my life the particularities and specificities of that job and accept its particular limitations, then this too can short-circuit the manifestation process. The second pillar is interrelationship. There is a story that used to make the rounds of environmental groups back in the 70s and 80s. I've also read it in at least 2 books on ecology, but the authors did not give a reference for it, so perhaps it's apocryphal. At least it illustrates my point, and it is certainly representative of hundreds of other similar stories from the field of environmental studies. It seems the World Health Organization was attempting to eliminate malaria in a section of Borneo by spraying DDT over native villages. The pesticide was intended to kill off the mosquitoes that carry the disease, and toward this end it succeeded. The incidence of malaria dropped dramatically amongst the population. However, during this same time, it was noticed that the number of cases of plague was rising dramatically. Also, some of the village longhouses, each of which was home to several families, were collapsing as their thatched roofs disintegrated. Investigations showed that a species of insect lived in the grasses that made up the thatched roofs of the longhouses. Normally, these insects ate these grasses but were in turn eaten by lizards, who themselves were eaten by village cats. This cycle kept both the insect and lizard population in check. After spraying, the DDT covered the grasses of the roofs and was ingested by the insects, who were not harmed by the chemical. However, DDT concentrates as it moves up the food chain. Thus, the lizards that ate the insects eventually died from DDT poisoning, as did the cats from eating the lizards. As the cats died, rats invaded the villages from the surrounding jungle, bringing with them fleas that carried the plague. Also, without the lizards to keep down the population, the insects multiplied unchecked, feasting on and eventually destroying the roofs of the longhouses. The insects, the lizards, the cats, the rats, the houses, and the villagers had all lived together in an interconnected microecology. They lived together in a system. When one element of that system was disturbed, the whole system reacted in a way that was initially unexpected, but that could be understood in hindsight. The idea of systems is particularly explicit in the science of ecology. We are accustomed to thinking of the individual animals and plants that make up a particular environment, but now we are learning to see the whole pattern of interaction between these creatures and the landscape as a thing in itself, an ecosystem. The old adage of not seeing the forest for the trees is literally true when dealing with ecosystems, for a forest is an ecological unit in itself, made up not only of trees but of many other animals and plants as well. Thus, the controversy over the danger to the spotted owl in the American Pacific Northwest due to logging its habitat can be misleading if we think that just a single species is at risk. The spotted owl is actually an indicator species whose well-being is indicative of the well-being of the forest as a whole and of many other species who live and incarnate the forest. It is the ecosystem that is at risk, not just a single species. The system's perspective is one of interrelationship. It holds that everything is a system or is part of a system. When we apply this perspective to manifestation, it means that what we seek to manifest is itself a system or part of one, and by manifesting it, we make it become a part of the system of who we are. In other words, we invite something that already has its own web of interrelationships to become interconnected with the web of interrelationships that make up our own lives. When this new interrelationship is formed, new information, new patterns, new potentials, a new system emerge as a result. This new system may bring with it unexpected consequences. In the book A Pattern Language, a book on architecture by Christopher Alexander, he states, in short, no pattern is an isolated entity. Each pattern can exist in the world only to the extent that it is supported by other patterns. The larger patterns in which it is embedded, the patterns of the same size that surround it, and the smaller patterns which are embedded in it. This is a fundamental view of the world. It says that when you build a thing, you cannot merely build that thing in isolation, but must also repair the world around it and within it, so that the larger world at that one place becomes more coherent and more whole, and the thing which you make takes its place in the web of nature as you make it. We each have a unique pattern. My pattern includes my body, my memories, my thoughts and feelings, my relationships, the place in which I live, the job I do, the system of which I am a part, and my participation in an ultimate unity. A pattern is like a wiring diagram. It describes the nature of the relationships and connections I am forming and sustaining in my life. Whenever I seek to manifest something, I also seek to change my pattern, the sum total of my interrelationships, to a greater or lesser degree. Manifesting a toaster will probably not alter my pattern very much, but manifesting a marriage partner certainly will. Part of the inner art is learning to be sensitive to the interrelationships represented by systems and patterns, and to intuit the possible consequences when my pattern and that of the objective of my manifestations come together. The third pillar co-incarnates. The power of manifesting is not something I possess in isolation from my world. It is a shared power. The more you have it, the more I have of it, and conversely, the less able you are to manifest, the less able I am to do so. That is the impact of the co-incarnational dimension of our lives. Individual choice and initiative always have the power to rise above collective inertia. However, none of us lives separate lives from our common humanity or from the life of the world. When the world of which we are a part is healthy and vibrant, creative and inspired, then our own creativity, inspiration, health, and vitality are enhanced that much more. It is the difference between swimming against a current and swimming with it. People can rise above circumstances, and history is filled with examples of people who did just that, but this is not the same as saying that people are separate from their circumstances. Our environment, our social condition, our community, town, neighborhood, ethnic group, and so forth are all part of what incarnates us. They are part of our extended body. We can change these things, hopefully for the better, but we are not separate from them. We are accustomed to think of ourselves in singular terms. I have the power, and this I is a singular entity, a particle. But I am also a wave. To return to my quantum metaphor, and as a wave I am a part of ever-expanding layers of community. Which part of me, the particle or the wave, possesses the power to manifest? My answer is that both do. Working together in wholeness. If I deny the wave, I cut off that power. If I deny the particle, I cut off that part too. Any conditions that demean or diminish an individual's spirit, imagination, creativity, or will destroy the particle, or any conditions that enhance selfishness, destroy community, diminish connections and interrelationships, and deny love, destroying the wave, act against the power of manifestation for everyone. On the other hand, manifestation thrives where community and acts of mutual empowerment are present, and where the uniqueness and value of the individual are appreciated. The idea of community can be carried to a deeper level, one that is resonant with Bohm's notion of wholeness. This is what we live in, a co-incarnational universe. Everything that is exists because of and in relationship to something else. Each entity's incarnation is more than just its unique configuration. the information it contains and manifests, and the boundaries that keep it distinct. Its incarnation also includes the interrelationships and connections that define its participation within a larger reality. Its incarnation is not just a thing, but a pattern that defines how it is embedded in the world. As such, it is also a part of the pattern of incarnation of others. To be sure, each of us is unique. There is no other Brian Scott precisely like me. But what makes me unique is not my name or my physical and psychological makeup. Someone else might have my name. Several people do. In fact, might look like me or be made to look like me and think like I do. But no one else has my particular relationship to my parents, to my wife, my children, my hobbies, my profession, to my friends, to my environment, or to spirit. These things, which are essential elements of my uniqueness, are part of the pattern of my incarnation. They are my incarnation. I call myself a teacher, but if no one ever attended any class I offered or read anything I had written, could I really be a teacher? Those who graciously watch my YouTube videos help me to become a teacher. We are all co-incarnates. We are all manifesting each other, or perhaps more precisely, we are each contributing to and maintaining the conditions, the total ecology of being that enables each of us to exist and to unfold. The individual pattern of a person or thing, as formed by its co-incarnates, is dynamic. Some aspects of it last for a lifetime, other aspects are fleeting. My parents certainly are co-incarnates of mine. They'll be my parents throughout my life. They will always occupy some portion of the pattern that is myself, although the actual nature of the relationship between us will change over time. Can an object be an active co-incarnate? Yes, if it defines who we are and what we do, and in some manner shapes or influences our behavior. Remember Archie Bunker's chair in the TV show All in the Family. It was sacrosanct. Archie's behavior often revolved around that chair. It became so identified with him that it later was placed in the Smithsonian Institute as an American cultural icon, Daddy's chair. An inanimate object becomes actively co-incarnational when our relationship to it is sacramental. Think of all the crosses in the world that Christians venerate and use. An object can be co-incarnational when its function alters our lives, and we become dependent on it in some way. When we wish to manifest something, when we look at the co-incarnational relationship it forms with us, in the final analysis, that is what we will be manifesting, not the thing or the person, but the pattern that the thing or person forms with us. The fourth pillar is mind. Jim had been diagnosed with lung cancer and was given 5 months to live. Accepting this prognosis, he began to close out his affairs in preparation for his death. Then one day, a friend mentioned that it was possible to find parking places simply by imagining that one will be there right where you need it. This seemed ridiculous to Jim, but the next time he drove downtown in the city where he lived, he tried it. To his surprise, it works. He soon found he could manifest a parking place whenever and wherever he wanted, even at peak traffic times in the most congested parts of the city. This experience opened him to the possibilities inherent in the creative power of his imagination, mind, and spirit. He thought that if he could manifest parking spaces, why not something more important like good health? So he set about to manifest healthy lungs. He did. That was 20 years ago, and he is alive and well today, his cancer fully in remission. Jim's story is dramatic, but it is not unique. The power of consciousness to affect physical health is well known, but recent research into such disciplines as psychoneuroimmunology and the use of imagery and visualization to improve performance in sports, in business, and in education suggests that this power is more comprehensive than anyone had suspected. The distinction and boundaries between mind and matter, a legacy of the French philosopher and mathematician René Descartes, are far more permeable and overlapping, far less separating and limiting than we have been taught. In our materialistic and mechanistic culture, we are taught that mind and consciousness are ephemeral, a phenomenon of matter. The mystical and esoteric traditions, and on the other hand, reverse this. They say that all matter is a projection of consciousness, and that reality is created by thought. In a way, both views are right, for matter and mind alike are reflections or aspects of something else, a more primal substance and process that we may call the universal field of being. It is here, in the eternal permutations and interactions of this field, that primal states of mind and matter are transformed from one to the other and back again. It is here that the energy that sustains and creates the universe is generated. Implicit in this image is the mind permeates everything. Everything is mind, partakes of mind, expresses mind, and is connected by mind. However, in saying this, a clarification is necessary. This primal state of mind is much more than what we normally call mind. To say that the universe thinks as you and I think is a vast oversimplification, a projection of human experience onto the totality of creation. Our mind is a reflection, not a description of the primal universal mind. We often use the word mind to mean simply thought or intellectualization, and we tend to think of our own individual mind as separate from all others. In this context, manifestation may be seen as a process of using the power of your mind to influence the minds of others. Yet our mind is more than just mental content and processes of our rational intellect. As Caroline learned, it includes the functioning of our bodies, in particular, the nervous, endocrine, and immune systems. In fact, all aspects of our bodies contribute to the phenomenon of mind, including our morphological structure, that is, the way we are built. Mind also includes our relationships with the world. It is our memories, our genetic coding, our ancestry, our cultural identity, our dreams of the future, our connections to other living species, and to the earth in general. Furthermore, the universe is a holistic unity, and mind reflects the wholeness. Mind is a non-local phenomenon, not restricted to a particular place like the brain or body. As anthropologist and cyberneticist Gregory Bateson has pointed out, mind is a pattern that connects, and it exists in relationship. It is found not just within us, but in the spaces between us. I may talk about my mind, but there is an aspect of mind that is ours as well, and as Bateson discusses in his classic book Mind and Nature, part of nature and the larger cosmos. In effect, mind unfolds from and reflects the primal unitive field, the pattern of all interrelationships that constitute the universe. That is why I resist descriptions of manifestation as mind over matter. Mind is a participatory phenomenon, not necessarily a controlling or dominating one. Mind is not over matter. Each shapes and affects the other in a universal dance that creates and dissolves forms and patterns. Manifestation is the art of transforming these patterns from within. It is the art of repatterning, of changing, and fine-tuning the web of relationship and interconnection. It is the art of creating a new tune so that these ancient partners of mind and matter may dance a new dance across the ballroom of the cosmos, or at least through the living rooms of our personal lives. The fifth pillar, essence. To explain this, David Spangler explains that when he was 7 years old, his parents were living on an American airbase in Morocco. One day he was driving into that city on a shopping expedition, and he was sitting in the back seat looking out the window and watching a group of Arab women washing their clothes in an irrigation ditch that they were passing. All at once, he felt a strange but not unpleasant sensation in his body, as if he were a balloon and someone were inflating him. Before he had a chance to really examine it and see whether he should be frightened or not, he found himself out of body looking down on the car, seeing clearly through its roof as if with X-ray vision. There in the car were his mother and father, and also himself, still looking out the window. In the next instant, the car disappeared, and he was immersed in a brilliant light that gave way to a succession of images and panoramas that culminated in a vision of floating in space, looking down on the spiral curves of the Milky Way galaxy. All of space was filled with a warm golden light. There was no sense at all of being David Spangler, only of his life. He seemed to stay in that state of oneness for a very long time, filled with ecstatic joy, and then became David again and saw himself hurtling toward the earth. The next moment, he was once more looking out the window of his car. It seemed that he has gone forever, yet the car had hardly moved, and he knew the whole experience had lasted only a few seconds of clock time. This experience left him with an awareness that beyond the physical world, there are non-physical or spiritual worlds. These inner realms are not dealt with by science, but they have always been part of the mystical and esoteric traditions. Such traditions acknowledge that we are all metaphysically amphibious. We live in more than one dimension at once. We're all physical beings, but at the same time we are inhabitants of a spiritual reality that embraces and transcends the physical dimension. The aspect of us that lives in that spiritual dimension has been given many names, such as spirit or soul. In the context of manifestation, Spangler calls it essence. The idea of essence is a reflection of your own inner experiences, as well as of the many mystical and shamanic traditions that teach that everything has an inner nature. This essence is like a field of energy. It is the specific quality that differentiates one thing from another, even though they may look alike in form and behavior. It is the core identity. It is easy to visualize the essence of a fellow human being. You can, after all, simply extrapolate from your own personal subjectivity, but unless you are shamanically inclined, you may have difficulty transferring this perception to a chair or an automobile. To speak of a chair as having a unique inner state seems patently ridiculous, yet you can imagine the energy of a chair. Many objects, both human-made and naturally occurring, have a beauty, a grace, a charisma around them that is very appealing. This may be due to their shape, to the process that went into creating them, and their functionality. Any psychic worth his or her salt will tell you that objects are also infused with the energy of people who create them, own them, or use them. Consider, for example, the energy state or essence of a cross or a chalice used to celebrate a high mass. These are not considered ordinary objects, but are imbued with a mystery, a field of energy appropriate to their sacramental use. However, it has been my experience that beyond such infusions of quality and energy through use and association, there is still a quality of essence, of non-physical energy that exists within everything, that is the isness of the thing itself, emerging from its own inner nature and not from its environment. One way to attune to the essence of that which you wish to manifest is to consider how it is unique. How is it different from other similar objects, for example? It is that uniqueness that will be entering into and impacting upon your life. You're not getting the ideal house, you're getting a particular house that will have its own idiosyncrasies and quirks. You're not marrying the archetypical woman, you're marrying a particular woman who has her own individuality. Attuning to essence goes hand in hand with recognizing and honoring the differences, the individuality, the uniqueness of everything about you. It reminds us that while our minds create categories and try to fit everything into them, life creates objects and people that are one-of-a-kind categories in themselves that will never fit our preconceived notions. To manifest successfully is to accept into your life that which is different from what you imagined and to be open and appreciate those differences. For me, the inner essence of the object in my world is not a metaphor, but a very real concrete experience. It is an aura or emanation that everything possesses. When I seek to manifest something, I am drawing that aura into my life to interact with my own. Learning to attune to and recognize the essence or energy within things expands your sensitivity to your world and further emphasizes that you are incarnating and living in a sea of relationships, not in a quarry of dead objects that you can use any way you like. The sixth pillar of manifestation is unity. Have you ever had an incredible coincidence? For instance, you hear on the radio a reference to driving a blue Lexus in Florida while you're driving a blue Lexus in Florida. These are all incredible coincidences that we regularly experience. And sometimes there are meaningful coincidences corresponding to specific thoughts that you have. Think of manifestation as a controlled or invoked synchronicity. As Spangler defines it, synchronicities are the outward expression of an underlying order or pattern within or beneath all the manifestations of the cosmos. They are an expression of the fundamental unity, the interconnectedness, the interrelatedness, the co-incarnatedness of creation. Synchronicities are possible because the dimensions of space and time that normally separate objects and events are subsumed into a deeper pattern of interpretation and interaction. And so we return to the primal state of David Bohm, called the enfolded or implicate order, which we began with. Manifestation is possible because we live in a cosmos that at its deepest level is made of relationships unfolding out of a state of primal unity. Everything unfolds in a unique way, but retains a connection to the unified state. Everything unfolds with the help of relationships with other equally unfolding entities. We are all in one degree or another co-incarnates of each other. We think of owning and possessing, of having things and people in our environment, yet all these things and people are a part of the pattern, the wide body of our incarnation. They are our extended body, as important to the uniqueness and expression of our being as our particular physical body may be. We are defined, expanded, limited, and structured by our possessions and relationships. They form a metaphysical skin that establishes at any moment just where and what our particular boundaries may be. Therefore, when we manifest something or someone, we are affecting that boundary. We are expanding, shrinking, or in some way altering that skin. We are incarnating ourselves, and by co-incarnational extension, the rest of the world as well. Hence, all manifestation is an act of co-incarnation disguised as an act of acquisition. By thinking of manifestation as simple acquisition, I can maintain a perspective of being separate from my world and separate from the things I own. I can take a superior stance to both. However, when I learn to think and perceive from the perspective of incarnation and relationship, then I see myself as a participant in a co-creative dance with life. Neither fully subject nor object, but like the wave-particle duality of light, something that is a bit of each and more than either. Manifestation is an act of participation, of deepening. The more I can enter into the communion and community of my world, the more manifestation will work for me. This means that manifestation is also an expression of those qualities that normally deepen and enrich lives and relationships: love, compassion, caring, empowerment, and the honoring of difference. The world of the physicist and the world of the mystic are coming closer and closer together. They may or may not merge, but even running parallel, they both point to a universe that is more unified, interactive, interdependent, participatory, and ecological than mechanical, clockwork, or materialistic. To see manifestation only as a way of wielding mental powers of magnetic attraction and influence over the environment is to remain caught in an older paradigm. Rather, the 6 pillars suggest we must see ourselves as co-manifestors, partners in manifestation, all engaged in the primal act of unfoldment and emergence. Each act of manifestation may be directed toward a specific outcome, but it also contributes to the greater manifestation of the wholeness, love, compassion, and creativity of the primal source from which we all come. There is another important point. When we think about what we manifest, we usually think in terms of objects, persons, opportunities, or resources. However, once these things become part of our lives, they become aspects of the pattern we call ourselves. They may be separate from us physically, but they are a part of the total environment, physical, psychological, and spiritual pattern that defines us. They are outer reflections of inner states and realities. In all our acts of manifestation, we are really only manifesting a new aspect of ourselves. We are giving our lives a new shape. We are the primary object of our manifestation. So this important discussion goes in very deeply in understanding the quantum nature of manifestation, that we are both particles and waves. And if you adopt and understand this teaching, you understand that you're not attracting something to you. You are becoming a part of that thing that is already you. You are allowing a revealing of your inner nature, of your inner character. So the 6 pillars of manifestation are waves, interrelationship, and co-incarnates, mind, essence, and unity. Each of these aspects, when studied and understood, expands your understanding of how this process works. Once I was able to transcend the understanding of manifestation, that I was magically creating something, that it was bringing it to me, and I was identifying something that is already within me and attuning to it, allowing it to develop as a part of my own inner pattern, then it became much easier and much more fun to manifest. I understand that this is a more advanced teaching of manifestation, but to truly manifest your desired reality, you must understand the dynamics of how it works. And a big mistake a lot of people make is separation. They see that thing that they're manifesting as something that's separate. When you understand that you're interacting, there's an interrelationship and a pattern that you're allowing into your own field of energy, a system that is being integrated into a wider system then you have the most amazing manifestations. It's not complicated. You're not required to become a mathematician. You're required to go within and identify this thing that is already a part of you and the system in which it occurs. And this perspective also allows you to step back and understand you're not manifesting something in isolation. What you manifest affects the whole world. And so when you manifest understanding the system and interrelationship and unity of all things, you can totally change the world and your place in it. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com, and welcome to The Reality Revolution.